What's going on, football fans? It's me, J.R. Clark, back again with another Pound for Pound ATL. Joined as always by my main man, Jonathan Holder. Jonathan, what's going on, brother?
Man, TGIF.
No doubt. No
Thank the
doubt.
Lord it is Friday. I'm so ready
Dude,
for
it's
this
been a
week to get here.
it has been a week, like big time. It has been a week. Like I spent yesterday driving up to Nashville and back for work, and like that took forever. I haven't had
Oof.
to I had to detour twice going up there and once coming back. I had to get off the interstate and go winding through because of a wreck or because of something. So yeah, that was the longest trip up there and back yesterday. But yeah, and then today, ton of running around. So yeah, I'm definitely glad that it is over, and I'm glad it is the weekend.
Yes,
Um,
it's been like this week with like all the Falcons news. Just trying to keep up with the Falcons news. Just sports news in general has
mhm.
been trying to keep up with all that. On top of this is it's the first real full week of the month for
Hey,
for me for us like business wise, and so a lot of reporting is done on the previous month and trends and trend analysis and just all that BS.
good fun
It's been
stuff.
it has been I do not want to see a spreadsheet for at least 3 days. Really don't.
Well, we are on to what, like day 8 or so? Day 7, day 8,
Uh
something like that
ish. Yeah,
of
something
of
in that
of
range.
training camp.
Yeah.
Last night, for all you fellow degenerates out there, we had a live football game on. Now, on your TVs, you had Mike Tirico and Chris Collinsworth
Yep.
talking about football in a live event. So that signals that football is back, right?
Yeah, that's just how crazy it's been. I literally texted you earlier today. I was like, I totally forgot that was even happening.
No,
Oh my god.
it was I watched a little bit of it. I ain't gonna sit here and say I watched all of it. Um, I did see like Zach Wilson had a real nice deep bomb, 57 yards, but
Yeah,
that was after coming off of a scramble where he fell on his face. Like nobody touched him. He just kind of slipped and fell over. So I mean,
yeah. It wasn't like it wasn't. He was trying to make it. If it's what I think you're talking about, like I've only seen like the very beginning, like early of the game, but it's a situation where like Collinsworth pointed this out. He was like, he looked better there, right? Because even though the play didn't quite work
right.
out, it wasn't a first down or anything like that. Uh, like last year, he would have been like one read, maybe go to the second read, and then he was scrambling.
Yeah.
Well, this year he was like, he went one, two, had pressure, spun out of it. Even after spinning out of it and running kind of a looping pattern towards the line of scrimmage, you could still see his eyes were down and he was looking. And then at some point he was like, "All right, I just got to tuck it." And then when he did, he had a
That's
guy
when he
coming
lost.
right at him. He had
Mhm.
a guy coming right at him, so he's trying to make a cut and he slipped and
Right. That's
fell.
when he lost his footing.
Yeah,
Yeah, so but I think the star, there was two stars of the show last night. One being Will McDonald, who looked really good for the
yeah,
Jets. He was a guy who I interviewed down there at the Senior Bowl, talked to about anime. Really good dude. Um, and like he was a guy who I was like, if we went pass rusher early on, he
yeah.
was a guy that I was wanting. He looked good last night, and then the real star of it was DTR, the quarterback for the Browns. He's the quarterback from UCLA. Something, his last name's Robinson, Dimitri, or I can't. They call him
I
DTR.
yeah.
But he showed his athleticism. Made some good plays, good reads. I think that maybe not solidly this year, especially with the rule change of being able to carry three, but I could easily see him being the Browns' like long term backup quarterback myself.
Nice.
But now on to what has brought us here in a sense, which is the things that have been transpiring over camp this past
Yeah.
week. Um, it's the ugly part of the business, the sad part of the business, and that is, it seems like the injury bug has come a calling in Flowery Branch. It started off a week or so ago with Matt Hennessy going down. We got early on reports saying that wasn't anything major, which was great news. Um, so we looked at it as a good thing in a sense of now you have a chance of seeing Bergeron actually go up against the ones because
Yep.
he was the next guy up. So that was you know potentially a positive, even though it sucks that Hennessy got dinged up. And then we
Yep.
never really did get an actual like what happened, but a few days later, the the sideline reporters noticed that Janu Smith was not out there.
Yeah.
Uh, and so when coach was asked about him, he made a comment that, oh, very minor, no real big deal, not something they were concerned about. They actually expect him back next week when they go down to Miami to do the joint practices with the Dolphins. So again, we're like, okay, cool. Yes, we're getting dinged up a little bit, but nothing major. Then we had the first like what I would call like major blow, and that was yesterday, or like it was yesterday was Thursday, so it might have been Wednesday because it seems like all this rash of injuries has like hit. So
They may have occurred Wednesday, and we just didn't hear about them until because we were off yesterday. So
yeah, well, I think we had talked about it. We might have even talked about it on Tuesday. It's all starting to blur together because this week has been crazy.
yeah,
But yesterday they made the moves of waiving a Nikki Inakanu.
that
Nope.
guy.
Yep, he was the undrafted D lineman, edge guy out of Rice, I believe. They waived him. They
Yep.
waived wide receiver Chris Blair,
Yep.
and they waived Felipe Franks.
They found his pictures that he had.
Right. So
They
everybody
got him
kind
from
of,
him.
yeah, like so social media kind of was like, especially our Twitter line was like, yay, finally.
Yeah.
But then it comes out that Felipe Franks like has like tore a ligament or something in his foot. And
Yeah.
they waived him, it sounds like with the intent of him reverting to IR, like with nobody claiming him, which I don't understand. Like these are like the little small nuances that I still don't really get because the guy that Ikanane tangled up with was Ethan Greenridge. Okay. They placed Ethan Greenridge on IR. They
Yeah.
didn't waive him.
Well,
So
so my guess would be is that maybe they couldn't. I don't know all the intricacies of that stuff, but my guess would be they felt like Felipe would make it through waivers, whereas they may think that Greenidge would not.
I would have to,
Um,
what I would have to look at is like, what are the implications of one over the other,
mhm.
you know, because, all we haven't gotten anything official. Felipe Franks is not back on the team yet. He hasn't fully cleared waivers, but there was a report to come out that said, look, he's well liked in the building. And, like they feel like he's just, their intent is that he's going to revert back to waivers, or revert back to IR off of waivers. Um, which, I kind of said as a look, I mean, the guy he's a coach's guy in a sense of willing to do anything, willing to be a gunner, willing to be a personal protector, willing to be a trash can if he needed to be.
Yep.
And with a blue collar mentality guy like Arthur Smith, I can see how and why he's hung around, whether I
Yes.
agreed with it or not, because I do think the roster spot is more valuable. But I also think the ability to carry a third quarterback, like without affecting your roster this year, also probably influenced the decision.
Probably. That would be my guess. But again, like we don't like him because of when we've seen him at tight end. in a game, or we've seen him at quarterback in a game, this guy doesn't produce.
Right.
Okay. Uh, we don't know if that's he's not getting the passes because he's way down on the progression chart and just it doesn't get to him, or he doesn't get open when he is higher on the progression chart, or what. But also, we're not there for everything that goes on in practice. We're not there
Right.
for everything that goes on in the classrooms. We're not there for everything that goes on in the meeting rooms. We're not there for all of these things that they are privy to. And so, we don't know what kind of things he does for the team that they feel like is an asset for them. And we can, whether it's us or it's anybody else on Twitter, any of the analysts out there, any of them can go out there and say like, well, if they keep Felipe Franks, they're not good coaches. They're not this, they're not that. They don't know what they're doing, yada yada yada. But the simple fact of the matter is we we have a very limited insight into why they like him to the extent that they would keep him even when the rest of the fan base is like,
What are you doing? Yeah.
who cares?
Yeah, it's one of those deals where they're not beholden to us in to tell us everything. It doesn't benefit them to tell us everything. And when you're in a business of winning, and trying to be like put the best product out there, like you don't want to give away anything that doesn't
Yeah.
behoove you to give away. And so it could be just as simple as, hey, look, it could be as simple as that Arthur Smith absolutely feels like if he had to, he could put him in at quarterback. And maybe for Arthur Smith, that right there is enough of a peace of mind to carry him on the 53 and keep him active on the 46,
Well, because
on
because
game
even
day.
even because even if he's part of the 53 or whatever, or the active 46, if yeah, even if he doesn't play quarterback, which we hope he doesn't in a regular season game, but even if he doesn't play quarterback in a regular season game, he can still go out there and be another guy that you can put on special teams, that you can
Right.
do all those things. So it's just
It's
he really fits in the mold of what exactly, because he actually came out and said it today, something that again I know that you were like one of the, for me, you were one of the first people that I remember like bringing this up. Maybe somebody else did, but you were the first one that I remember, and that was when they said, how is your wide receiver group looking? And he said, "Oh, you mean our skill guys? You can put
right.
running backs and tight ends in there with them, and
Yep.
and so he likes that." You know, the what's the word I'm looking for? Like the
Versatility.
multiple, the
Yeah.
versatility that somebody like a Franks can give you. Like, yeah, if you're in a real bad situation and you need somebody that can go back there and be quarterback that has a realistic like shot at actually
Understanding.
doing
Yeah,
at least
realistic
understand.
understanding of how to do, you know.
Right. Whether it's good, bad, and different, this guy at least knows what he's doing,
Mhm.
to an extent, and so like you said, that peace of mind of knowing like if worst comes to worst,
I
I
absolutely
have this to lean on.
right.
If I absolutely we're not necessarily worried about winning at
Yeah,
that point.
yeah, it's like, okay, you remember a handful of years back, and then we'll get off this subject and move on, but a handful of years back when I think it was, Mike Smith was still coaching, or it might even been Dan Quinn at that point, but we were down to Levine Toilolo playing tackle.
Yep.
It was in the Minnesota game against, and we almost won that game, but it was like, you were down to, hey, look, you gotta go out there and do it. So it's not out of the realm of possibility. I mean,
Right.
just look at the Niners last year. They had, they were down to like a fourth or fifth quarterback, kind of situation.
Yep.
But in corresponding moves, the Atlanta Falcons, I believe, now have to be the most like XFL heavy team. And they signed Matthew Goethel, Goethel, the defensive lineman, a offensive lineman, Michael Minute, another defensive lineman, Kavion Patton, and a wide receiver, Matthew Sexton. All of
Yep.
these guys are from the most recently from the XFL. I'm trying to see if I can actually get um, any kind of like real stats off of them.
And the good thing about that is if it wasn't those guys, then chances are it was either going to be guys who've been in the league forever who didn't make it on other teams, or and maybe some of these guys have played in the NFL before but couldn't quite make it before, and whatever. Or you're talking about undrafted free agents, guys that that didn't make it, to the point where they were drafted. They didn't even get caught up in the initial, UDFA signing period, and you don't have these are guys that don't have any experience.
right,
So at least these guys have some experience of playing something other than college football.
right.
So that maybe gives them a little bit of a leg up over traditional undrafted free agents that you would probably be signing at this point.
At this time of year. So I don't expect a ton out of anybody that we just signed from the
Yeah,
XFL, but it just to me it continues to show you that the XFL was actually successful, regardless if you sat down and watched any games or not. From a player standpoint, they have to feel pretty good about. I mean, they probably up to upwards of 100, some odd players have gotten signed out of the XFL. So that's not bad. That's not bad numbers.
no, and the more and if more and more of those guys stick, then the XFL can be legitimately looked at as like a D league for the NFL, where
Right.
guys who don't quite are not quite ready for the NFL, whether they went through 3 or 4 years of college is irrelevant, but they go to the draft, they don't get drafted, what have you, they don't get signed as undrafted free agents, and then they go to the XFL and they get some seasoning there to be able to then get not just seasoning but also just tape on their
Mhm.
on them playing, to be able to, for coaches to be able to look at. Otherwise, like these guys would probably, if they went anywhere else, they were going to the CFL.
Yeah.
And if they didn't go there, there was nowhere to go.
Yeah,
And
there was intramurals and stuff like that, but you're not making those jumps.
no,
Um, so I think the XFL, for what it is, I hope like continues to gain steam. So now on to like the hard hitting, like the gut punching, uh,
potentially,
thing, yeah, potentially thing today, and that was early this morning, shortly after practice started. Jeff Okuda went down. Now,
yeah,
it does sound like it was in the process of doing something. And the reason why I phrase it that way, a lot of times you get like a non-contact injury.
those are
And
always bad,
yeah,
almost universally.
yeah. Universally, if a guy's just running and falls over for no apparent reason, that means something has popped in like a rubber band has, come loose.
Snapped.
And right. And so this one, it is confirmed that it is an ankle injury,
Hmm.
but they're waiting on an MRI before they go any further, speculation as far as what this means for Akuda's season. Part of me wants it to almost be, I know it's going to sound really bad, but part of me wants it to be just like a broken ankle because we're still about a month out from the season.
Hmm.
And like that means he might miss the first month of the season and be
Yeah,
back. You know what I'm saying? Because broken bones tend to be like 6 to 8 weeks and they're healed up. So, like, he could potentially only miss like 3 or 4 games, maybe, and be
yeah,
back. But if it's like ligament damage, like if something is torn in there or if it's an Achilles, then he's done for the season. And he was a guy that the team clearly was counting on this year.
yeah. Yeah, it's I think best case scenario right now, the absolute best case scenario is like like just a straight up like really bad ankle sprain,
Mhm.
not necessarily like a high ankle sprain though. My guess is if they're bringing the card out and it was that painful, probably was high ankle. If we're talking about sprains, you could also be looking at like ligament strains,
Hmm.
Not necessarily tears. You could be looking at something like that. So the hope is that we're talking sprain or strain of some
Right.
kind.
That
That's the hope.
yeah, that is definitely the hope. But this goes back to something we had talked about and did a whole video on
Yeah,
earlier in the off season, and that is like we're going to really see how that raising of the floor has went because the first 2 years, the first 2 seasons of Arthur Smith's tenure, both seasons have seen the secondary cornerback or even primary in the fact of AJ go down.
yeah,
And so it seemed like this year they were doing what they could to bolster that secondary in the sense of bringing in Jeff Okuda, Mike Hughes, Trey Flowers, drafting Clark Phillips, bringing back D. Alford, trying to make sure that we're not running out there with, guys like TJ Green um,
yep,
for more than a couple snaps or, you know, unless he proved himself, guys like Cornell Armstrong, you know. And so it was interesting to see the first cornerback up. I thought honestly was going to be Mike Hughes, but the first cornerback up was Trey Flowers
yep.
to take the snaps of Jeff Okuda. So it's going to be something interesting to monitor as we continue to progress through camp. Does this open the door for a guy like a Clark Phillips who has been making plays?
Yeah,
Does this open the door for him to make a case for himself?
it's possible. I did see there was a tweet out there that was like, a lot of people talking about Clark Phillips. Dude's only 5'9". Let him work in the slot. And I saw your response is like, people said the same thing about Brent Grimes. I think the biggest difference between, I believe, I have not, I'd have to go and look at the actual numbers to be 100%. But the biggest difference between a Brent Grimes and a Clark Phillips is not their coverage ability or their just ability in general. The biggest difference was Brent Grimes could jump out of the gym.
Yeah,
That dude could jump real high. Okay, so I don't think or don't know about if Clark Phillips has that kind of hop to him.
yeah, I don't
So
know.
if he does, then cool. But I would think that's something we would know about. If like that would have been something that would have been touted at some point. I have not really heard that about him. Now,
Yeah,
does that mean that he can't be successful if he doesn't jump like Brent Grimes? No, it doesn't, because for however many years, cornerbacks were 5'9", 5'10", 5'11". Like a 6 foot corner, and even still today, to some extent, a 6 foot corner is considered like a tower. Is a towering corner, and then anything above that's just a mammoth corner, right?
okay.
Um,
So here's the deal. I was just pulling this up real quick to either like validate your point there, right? Jeff Okuda stood 6'1". All right.
right?
So, and now kind of in what you're talking about there, in the size of like some of the guys that Jerry Gray has used, Trey Flowers makes a little bit of sense because Trey Flowers stands 6'3".
Yeah,
So that's
it's a
another
big
big
boy.
corner. Mike Hughes, on the other hand, is 5'10". And so I can now see why, like, I know something I never really did look at. I didn't really consider when they
Yeah,
signed Mike Hughes. It was like they're going to put him in the slot. They said it. So I was like, okay, I know he's played better on the outside in his career so far, but he was, he's a 5'10" corner, just like, Clark Phillips is 5'9". So now I can see why their first guy up trying to replace Okuda was Flowers. Because if you're going to be, playing man coverage as much as I think that we're going to be playing man coverage this year, having guys who can match up with, the Mike Evans and the Thomases and those guys, um, maybe what you're trying to do to begin with.
yeah, and like, second, um, the and from everything that I've seen, Trey Flowers has been getting good reviews in camp. The guy's been
Right.
been playing really well. So they just may have felt like he was a better, not just a stand in like size wise, being a bigger, even taller than Okuda was, but they just felt like he had been playing really well.
Yep.
And if he was next up on the depth chart, then you put him there and see what happens.
Oh yeah, no doubt.
So
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see now that now that battle intensifies. If Akuda is going to be out for a while, or even hopefully not, but even if it's the rest of the season, then the remaining part of training camp, that's going to intensify that secondary battle.
yeah,
Because I feel like that as much as you were seeing Akuda and Terrell being featured, in the coverage from the like Falcons Twitter and stuff like that, it really felt like that was a grouping that they were counting on, to
oh yeah,
like man the outside. So we'll see how it goes, and hopefully, man, I hope and pray that the injury to Akuda isn't all that serious, and he'll be back sooner rather than later. Because so far, other than I hate to say it like this, other than the lower tier guys, the guys who were fighting for a 53 anyway, the other guys hasn't been that big of a hasn't been like season ending, with the Hennessy's
yeah.
and the Janus. So hopefully, and it sounds like Calais Campbell was back in the building. He's not off the NFI list yet, but they said that he was back in the building. So
We're
hopefully,
getting. I imagine he will probably, if he doesn't come off this coming week, I imagine it'll be the week after,
right,
because we were told 10 days. That was at the very beginning of camp. That was a week and a half ago ish. So
right,
we should be right. So technically, what we should be seeing is, so today was their first day back. They're probably gonna go for another couple days. Then they'll pack up, head to Miami. Um, and we the first time we see him might be in Miami.
and maybe or they may be waiting until after the joint practices to bring him back. But speaking of practice, it looks like unless something goes pear shaped, it looks like I'll be floating around Flowery Branch again tomorrow. So if y'all do see me, say what's up, give me some daps or
Yep.
what have yous. I'm hoping that they'll be in. Nobody would ever confirm, so I'm really hoping that they don't just decide to be in shells tomorrow. I will be so annoyed if I drive back up there and it's just helmets. But anyway, uh,
Yeah,
but
I will not be. I will not be there. Like if they were going to do another, I mean, you've talked about this. If they were going to do another one, like at the Benz or something, I
that's what
would
I was
go for
hoping
that.
for.
I would
That's
go
what I
for
was
that.
hoping for, and so I'm not 100% sure if I'm going to make it to a, if we're going to make it to a preseason game. That's still kind of up in the air. So right now, this might be my last chance to see them before we go to the Houston game.
Yeah,
Um, Now, speaking of somebody else who was milling around camp for a little while today, uh, Matty Ice was back in the building.
it was.
Now, it sounded like, in a sense, he was there as part of maybe the CBS crew, because you also had Scott Pioli and a handful of other guys there, but that they didn't say that official. That's just me, thinking out loud. But it was good to have him back in the building. Him out there with his, the little ice cubes running around. That was nice to see. Everybody seemed to really like that, really enjoy it. There may have been a thoughts of some not bad blood, but like hard feelings at the end of Ryan's tenure here. But to have him back in the building so soon shows that you know Ryan probably viewed it all as just part of the business anyway. You know,
Yeah,
so
he seemed very. To me, Matt Ryan definitely comes across as a guy that's like, hey, business. Sometimes business things happen that you don't necessarily want to happen, but the business is still the business,
yep.
and you know
I mean, he was a corporate
it's
guy.
not
That was
it's not personal.
right, and that was one of like the knocks that people had on him, is that he was like too buttoned up in a sense. So, but like I said, it was good to see him back in the building. I'm sure that it wouldn't surprise me one bit that once he fully retires, as we said on the show, that he'll be a front office guy or some kind of brand ambassador. I don't know. I mean, I'm sure if he wanted to coach quarterbacks, that they'd probably let him. But
Yeah,
um, I mean, Chuck Smith had been out there for how long wanting to be a positions coach,
yeah.
and they never brought him in. So he's with
Which is
Baltimore now.
Yeah, I know, which is crazy. For one, he's a it's a homegrown talent kind of situation. This is a guy that played for Atlanta, had success for Atlanta. Um,
Loves Atlanta. Like,
loves Atlanta, and has had success with other guys that have gone to his camps or school or whatever the hell it
yeah,
is.
yep.
He's he's had that success, and yet it still didn't. But granted, maybe not Arthur Smith, but Arthur Blank would like to for that to happen. But I mean, I don't foresee him being a guy that's like Chuck Smith has to be on this
Oh yeah, no.
this this coaching staff one way or the other, and forcing him onto like an Arthur Smith or forcing him onto even Dan Quinn or anybody else. He's not going to force him on there.
No.
And those guys they have different
Had their own ways
guys.
about it.
Yep, have their own ways about it.
Yep. So, well, yeah, I think.
I did like probably my favorite thing I read on Twitter was I can't remember who posted it, but somebody's like, Matty Ice and the Ice Cubes were out here talking about his little kids as the Ice Cubes. That was awesome.
Oh yeah.
And it
No,
was good.
like
It was good to see him back on a Falcons field.
that's right. It's good to see him back on the field, smiling and and doing good. As far as like we didn't get any like reports as of this recording of the things that had transpired. May have been just because of the dark cloud of Okuda getting hurt. Might have had people not wanting to do that, but we did see we did hear briefly that the offense looked real sharp today. We did see Ritter connecting with Kyle Pitts in the red zone.
Yep.
Uh, and for any of those wondering, if you go to our merchandise shop, you can now secure yourself a Ritter Through It shirt. For those
Nice.
who want something like that, because that's been the big joke, like who threw it,
Yep. Yep.
well, Ritter threw it. Okay, that's who threw it. So, uh,
Yep.
um, but yeah, so like not much coming out of camp today. Like I said, I'll try to be there tomorrow is my intent. So, look for some updates there, on the good old Twitterverse, or I guess I should call it Xverse now. No, no, I'm still just going to call it Twitterverse. I don't care. Like
Exactly.
it's Twitter.
Don't give in to Elon and his stupid ideas.
I don't give in to any billionaire and their stupid ideas.
The,
Like
only
I
the
said,
only the only idea of Elon Musk that I'm actually behind these days is just about anything SpaceX related because I
yeah.
enjoy watching those rockets go up high.
Like I said, I could care less. Eccentric billionaires don't do much for to move the needle one way or the other for me. So most of them could do a lot more to help out society, and they don't. So
Yep.
and they don't get much thought, in my brain. Anyway, I think that's going to pretty much wrap it up. Unfortunately, like I said, the injury bug has hit Flowery Branch. Hopefully, it moves on quickly and doesn't like uh, get any more victims or claim any more victims. So, as
Yep.
always, you can follow me on Twitter at Grimm1128, GRIMM1128. Jonathan,
At Jonathan M. Holder, come by say hi.
Threads, if you're into that kind of thing, we're on there at Pound for Pound ATL. And we'll be back live next Tuesday for talking about camp stuff. And then next
Yep.
Friday is the preseason game, if I'm not mistaken, the Miami preseason game.
I think it is.
And if that's the case, we're going to try to be live during that game,
Yep.
like talking with y'all about what's going on.
I gotta figure out exactly how I'm gonna watch that. Whether it's gonna be through the NFL app or am I gonna have to do Hulu or YouTube or something. I gotta
uh,
figure something out on that.
yeah, well, I got Hulu, or not Hulu. I got YouTube locked in and rocking and ready to go for that. So we'll figure it out from there. And anyway, As always, Falcons fans, rise up.
Rise up.